maximum 8 hours.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Okay, so I will be brief. I will be brief, I promise. So, welcome to the lectures. We want to create some kind of, let's say, series lectures about the clean code, or let's say less obtrusive programming. And today's lectures is about how to avoid switch, or if else. Okay. If else. I have broken leg. Hell. Yeah, I guess you all saw some code, and you told yourself that this code is far from perfect, but you had no idea how to do it well, or how to do it well, like some simple way, or quickly, or fast enough. We hope that we will provide you with guidelines how to solve these problems, how to refactor it, how to move your code from big ball of mud to something which is maintainable, extendable, and in general more fun to use or work in it as a programmer. So let's start with something which is a little bit my personal issue. I hate switches. I really do. And why I do? Yeah, first is because of syntax. It's like goto, and we all agree that goto is not very good way to go. All okay. We exclude C programmers. Okay. When I talk about people, I don't include C programmers. Okay. Fair enough. So. Yeah, I don't like the way you must switch read, and small thing, when you use the local variable in some case between switch and case, it's used in all code underneath. So it's not really convenient regarding the usage of variable and things like that. You can make easily mistake in this. And so if you read any book, they will tell you that only a reasonable way how to use switch is when there is between case and break just one line of code. Yeah, no more. And in this case, I think, sorry?
Can that line of code be a method?
Yeah, of course, sure. Yeah, but in this case, I say that it's easy. You can simply replace it by hash table. So you prevent the situation that you can start with this very small switch with just one line of code, and then it could grow up to something really ugly. So, and I think you also code like this. Yeah, and. So this kind of code is easily replaceable by hash table, and yeah, this is why in our project I agreed that we will not use it at all. Okay, so this is example. This is really from our projects. Not like this. I rewrite the version to this. Hello, you are late, man.
Sorry, there was something more important.
I cannot imagine that. Yeah, so this is the switch version. It's kind of obvious what is it. We have some kind of enumeration of products, and every product is just it's for one country, one market. So and we need to translation between them. So if you use dictionary, it's look like that, this. And then the method is just the find correct key in the dictionary. Yeah, by my opinion, there is not very big difference in readability between these two codes, but this code has one big advantage. We changed the code into something which is like more data. So afterwards we can do things like that. We can find products, we can get all products for one country, and it's still one dictionary. If you want to do it with the switch, you would need two switches. Now we have just one dictionary for two purposes. Yeah, so this is, let's say, some kind of brief introductions, and yeah, I hate switches. Let's move on to today's topic. Why it's conditional considered code smell? If you don't know it, in object-oriented programming, you shouldn't use conditional, or at least you shouldn't use it too much often. Why? Why we consider code smell? Every switch somehow forks the code. So if you read some methods where are ifs or switches, you always have to think, okay, this variable has this when this variable has this value and this variable has this value and something magical happens, then it goes there here. So it's really, when you read it, it's really hard to somehow decrypt what's there, what's inside, what it's really doing, you know. So technically, it's a code smell comment. You tend to comment every if because you have no idea what this if say, because these 5 conditions say something what is like part of business logic. Usually, it says something from business logic. I will show you example afterwards. So this is the reason why number of condition in the methods is one of metrics of code complexity. There are a lot of metrics of how much complex your code is, but number of, let's say, forks in your code is one of these metrics. Conditionals tend to breed. Usually, if you use conditional instead of polymorphism, we will get to the idea that polymorphism replaces conditionals. So if you replace conditionals, if you use conditionals too much, then it's spread all around your code, because you use one condition over and over again on plenty of places in the code, and it's not really readable code. If you use polymorphism and you need another usage of this condition, you will just add the method. It's much more convenient way. Okay, I hope I show it later on the example much more easily. Function without conditions are easier to test. If you imagine your unit test, usually you have to do when you have condition in your method, you have to do 2 tests for it. If you have conditional inside condition, you have to do 4 tests. You know, it's multiplying the number of tests you have to create for one method when you test it. So if you have code without conditions, the unit test is much more easier. You know, it's more straightforward unit test than when you have conditions there. Usually, condition has hidden meaning. That's what I said before, that if you have some condition, you should somehow name it, because it's telling you some story. But if it's just condition, yeah, it's some meaning is there. Yeah, and it leads to the comment code smell, which is solvable by extract method. Every time you want to comment some code, don't comment it and create a method from it with this name, with the name you want to write into the comment. It's an easy way how to make your code more readable. And at the end, you can move it also in some more structured code. But you know, it's a really problem of this lecture. In the clean code, like in the life, everything is connected with everything. We are talking about the conditional code smell, but now we see comment code smell. Then I will talk about the primitive obsession code smell, and we can see a lot of code smell afterwards. So everything is connected with everything. That's the sad part. Yeah. So and last thing is that conditional is not really objective tools. It's not really tool of objective programming. There are languages where there is no condition, like in the small talk. So it's really possible to write code without any condition. Imagine that. So solution or how to the condition could be removed or replaced by polymorphism. Any condition technically, but let's move to that. Yeah, this is how some kind of switch or conditional hell looks like. It's one control and a lot of things which are controlled with this switch or if-else conditions. So the solution with polymorphism is do it like this, to add the functionality to every single piece. Yeah, and then you can press button on every single piece, and you don't need the control center, central control or whatever. Yeah. So now we move to the primitive obsession. Primitive obsession is very heavily connected with conditional, with using conditionals. So I need to talk about it. Technically, we all tend to primitive obsession, or at least I do. Primitive obsession is that we use primitive instead of objects. We should we use the programming language to describe something in the real world. However, unreal it could be for you. It's a description of some situation in the world. So, but in the world, we don't have primitives. We don't have numbers. Numbers and strings and things like this describe something in the real world, but it's not definable by it. So when we have human, the property is age, the property is, I don't know, height or first name, last name, but it's a human. So there should be object human with these properties. And not like use the parameter of the method, like when we use parameter of some method age, it's a primitive obsession. We should use parameter human. Yeah, okay, I forgot to show example. Yeah. Sorry, it should be before this primitive obsession thing. My mistake. Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah. Increase constant. Yeah. Now it's better.
Okay. It's better? Perfect. Yeah, but then we will have really a few things on one page. So I have object. I have object animal, and in constructor I take kind of animal enumeration, and so far I have just 2 animals in this enumeration. Yeah, this is the way how we often do our codes. This is completely wrong. Now I show you why. I have 2 methods, make a sound and favorite food. As you can see, there are 2 switches. It's not a really good way to go. If I add the 3rd method, there will be another switches and so on, so on, and so on. So this way of solving problems obviously leads to conditional hell. So what's the solution? The solution is get rid of the enumeration. It's the first step. delete is my favorite things which I do when I program. Guys can tell you that I love it. It's better than sex. So now I will create inheritance. And I guess it's kind of obvious that how I plan to solve it. Great polymorphism. Okay, I use abstract class. I could use the interface as well, but I think you get my point. Yeah. My bad. You know, I had to Google how is the English sound for a cat.
Yeah, that is just,
It's dog. Okay. Close enough.
But yeah, I'm surprised that you couldn't find it. You know how to make a dog meow, right?
Don't say it. It's not so.
Okay. So the switches are gone. Simple as that. So I think you got the idea how to replace the conditional with polymorphism. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. This is the simplest possible example. As you can see, as you can see, it's afterwards it's much more readable. Now, imagine that this will be in the separate classes. If I add another animal, it will be in separate classes. Everything in my example, the cat and dog has two properties, and you see these properties in not in some switch, but it's connected to the animal. It's much more readable. There are no forks in this code, and it's easier to testable. Yeah, that's the way to go. Okay. So, but when we use primitives instead of objects, we don't have polymorphism, and that's the reason why I feel it's so strongly connected with this problem. So if so this kind of leads to a lot of ifs and conditions in your code, because you have just the primitives and you have no place where to attach your methods. This would be objects with the properties, you can attach the code with it. When you are sending just primitives, you have no place to hook this method, so it leads to switches, ifs, and so on and so on. And this kind of, let's say, conditional health repeat all around the code. This way, you could have it like in one object, like not the conditions, but yeah, but the properties of it. Okay, I guess let's move on. So if you use primitives, it's like you use all pieces separately. You don't put them together. But if you put them together, it could make much more sense. And then you will realize that a lot of things which are randomly spread, or complicated things, complicated codes which are randomly spread all around your code, could be centralized and put much more easily together. So when we should absolutely use the polymorphism and don't accept any excuses. When the object has, when some object has some inside state, and the behavior of this object should be dependent on this state. Like in our cases, the application is the typical example of it. We have application for loan, and this kind of application has some kind of life cycle, some internal state. So we should use polymorphism for it. We don't do it, but it's other way. Another, let's say, hint to use condition is when you have same or very similar condition on many places in your code. Then it's a 100% chance that you miss some abstraction. And these abstractions can somehow spread the business logic, which could be concentrated in one object all around your code. In the articles I read, they said that every switch should be rewritten to polymorphism. Using if could be adjustable, or it could be possible, but switch, it's very rare case where it's a good idea to use it. Now in the C#, they really hurt me because they added a lot of new possibilities in the switch. So we have there are, let's say, reasons to use switch now, and I need to fight with guys even more. So I don't like the new version of C# because of it. Yeah, maybe this is the tip for all of you. Try to write some small application without any condition, just for fun. It's possible.
Hello world.
Sorry?
Hello world.
Sorry?
Hello world.
Yeah, maybe even a slightly more complicated one. Yeah, so this is the piece of code which was in our projects. I copied it for you just to see how to not write the code. Is like check if it's the type if it's the type. So everybody see when I use is, I can use same way. I can use some method in this object, and this will solve this kind of hell. Yeah, it's already gone, and I don't want to name Leoš who did it. Don't tell him, he has a lot of gun. Yeah. Sure, if you can use if when you have some math or helper methods, something where you kind of naturally work with primitives. Min and max, it's typical methods where it doesn't make sense to use anything else than primitives. Yeah. So another way how to avoid ifs is to write code more reasonable way. So of course now whenever you write the code return null in your method thing, it's not a good idea. There are languages without null and they are very popular. I think most of functional languages don't have null at all. So, is there null or not? Yeah?
Because of the interoperability.
Yes. The new version of C#, they consider it to give you options to forbid nulls in reference types. So the funny thing is that most of errors which you get from production environment is null reference exception. I think all of you saw that. So good way to get rid of a lot of ifs is don't use null. Of course, never use return code instead of throwing exception. It's not a good idea either. Yeah, maybe in functional languages you have to do it sometimes, but we all program in object programming, so exception it's a reasonable way how to throw error. Yeah, of course, another technique how to avoid if is to use some functional tweaks or features. Like in the .NET, you can use link queue to many benefits. It's instead of if in some cycle you can use where, you can use a lot of things in the link queue, and it's a really nice, pleasant, simple way how to avoid a lot of ifs in your code. Of course, a little bit more, let's say, dangerous way how to do it is to use predicate. Do it carefully because technically you are getting around the polymorphism this way. Okay, so maybe it's a good time for another example. This time I will not write it because I think it would take too much time. Example. Imagine that you're writing some. Okay, it's readable.
No.
That's what she said. So you have some typical command line application, and you have some, let's say, parameters, and you use. First idea is usually to use switch to differentiate. Okay. I write it into commands. Yeah, if somebody is, let's say, clean code fascist, these are not the original commands. Let's say it's some kind of simplified version of commands. So I created this kind of dictionary. This is the how to evaluate the command. And this is how the commands look like. Yeah, of course, interface of commands. And this provides us options to complicate this abstraction, to add new features, to, for example, add in this command, like in the constructor, let's say, additional parameters for these commands, and do something with that. Imagine if in this code, I had, let's say, laugh, and then way of laugh. Like the additional parameters for additional parameters. You all use console applications. You know that usually the parameters are very complex. So in this case, there should be switches in the switches, and so on, and so on, and so on. This way, I can move the abstraction inside these commands. Also, it's not really big trouble to use this command and for some redo action, undo and redo action. It's really easily extendable. If this classes would be public and I use it as a library, I can just inherit new command, just override methods, and the command will work the way I expect. If I have just this kind of switch, it's really hardly extendable, like from the external point of view. So it's really breaking of open-close principle. Open for extension, close for changes. Okay. Let's go to last example. Please stay awake. So this is This is more practical example from real life. This is some helper which calculates a base of parameters, insurance fee for cars. Yeah, as you can see, this way anybody of us would wrote it, I guess. Close your mouth, Kuba.
I want to focus. It's great.
So, first change. Let's get rid of primitive obsession. Let's create car and motorist object. So we will somehow concentrate the parameters, and then it's more obvious which parameter means what. As here, every time you write some property with two names, think. And when some names repeat itself, think twice. Yeah, okay. So this is the first step. Get rid of primitive obsession. Second step is somehow name these conditions. These conditions has some inside business logic. The first condition describes high risk level. When somebody is too young, when somebody has too many incidents, when somebody has too much points. So there is some logic inside. So I name it high risk level, medium risk level, and low risk level. Yeah. As you can see, I didn't get rid of condition, but give me time. And then based on this risk level, I can calculate the fee, insurance fee. Okay, other step. Now I change the switch into the polymorphism. I just create dictionary, my favorite thing. Be all of something, And I create the calculator, which has one method, calculate, and now I have low risk calculator, medium risk calculator, high risk calculator. Yeah, so somehow I'm somehow close the logic inside some objects. This is not still good enough because there are still some conditions, as you can see, and we now are on the curve side against conditions. So I left the calculators, but I added the condition inside. So now I have condition for low risk. God damn it. High risk, medium risk, and this is low risk. So I added the condition inside the object because the condition, it's really connected to the way it's calculated. And it's, afterwards, it's really easier to extend. If I will have some medium risk calculator, I will just add it here and create the condition the way it's work. It's not a really big deal. So now it's like I have calculators. I will find the first condition which is applicable for my case, and then I calculate it.
Sorry, can you show the low risk calculator logic?
Yeah, it's look like this.
Well, the low risk one.
It's just this because it's the
and in your logic, the first calculator is the low risk calculator. So if you find the first calculator which is applicable,
okay,
it will always return the.
Okay, sorry, it's a typo.
Well, I just meant in the link.
Latest version, you always use low risk calculator.
Yeah.
Oh, good point. Okay. Yeah, thank you. You're right.
I just think that this is because if you had all the logic in one place, you could see it, and you could say even if it was a switch, you could say you could see it all at once, and then
opposition finally.
But since you encapsulated this, you couldn't see this error.
Okay, so and what if you have more things you will calculate, like not just a fee, but let's say percentage of price you will pay when something happens, or I don't know, some other attributes which are connected to risk level. How would you solve it? The switch on other place?
Well, one option would be to create a risk as an object that encapsulates these.
This is the solution.
Well, right now you have these calculators which do logic for you.
Yeah.
I suggest you do the logic outside the calculators, outside the risk levels, and the risk levels will only return the values.
Yeah, but imagine that you have several things which you are doing in this. Okay, here I have just the method calculate. Imagine that you have 5, 6 methods like this. Then you would have 5, 6 switches in your code.
Well,
completely the same.
No, you would keep the values in the objects,
okay,
but the decision which object to use should not belong to the object. I would remove that is applicable, and I would return the conditions.
And how would you solve it? Then where you would have the code?
Well, the logic which decides which object to use would be outside the objects, but the values which to use would be inside the object.
And the benefit?
The benefit would be that you could see the logic
now
in one place.
Now you can see the logic in one place. You can see logic for high-risk calculator with a calculation inside at the one place.
Yeah, but when I look at high-risk logic, I cannot see the rest of the logic, and it leads to errors which we just saw.
And if I can understand this right, this should be extendable but not changeable, right?
Okay.
Imagine you have to extend to more than only high risk, low risk, medium risk, and you have to add like 20 more risks. And then imagine that you made an error in which should be first, and imagine then that you will need to add 20 more. And you will have to go to each of those risks.
Okay, technically, you will. It's hard to avoid this error even if it's on one place.
How many times have you forgotten to put a break into the switch? Very obvious error.
But you can debug it very easily because code just
there is no difference in debug. Anyway, you are going to write unit tests.
Yeah, so
it's much more easier and not so obscure to write unit tests just for so simple and straightforward classes than for some huge class with a lot of logic. Also, that was, I believe, the point of another colleague. In this case, it's used just some very simple. It's a collection or what of those risks. In real world, you are going to have a factory which will make the decision which object to return under that condition. So the logic which is defining which object to use will be at one place. This is a simplified case.
So I guess if you want to have it extendable, you can put these classes out of the method and to let's say have some logic which will add the calculator in your logic. And then it would be very extendable. Okay, I guess I didn't convince you. I wasn't sure if I choose the correct example. Yeah. So I guess I failed.
Now you know.
Sorry?
So now you know.
Thank you for noticing. Okay, let's move on. So let's sum it up. How to not drown in conditionals. So try to avoid null and error codes in your application. That's a really simple advice. Every if should be considered like, yeah, okay, is this necessary? And especially when some if is on many places, completely the same if. It's most likely some hidden polymorphism. Don't use primitives if it's possible, especially inside of your domain logic. Don't use primitives at all. Yeah, okay. When somebody types something in the keyboard in your UI, then it's a primitive, and then you have to collect it in some objects. But inside of your domain, don't use primitive as a parameter of methods, or don't use it. Yeah, use polymorphism when it's possible. Don't use switch ever. And if you want to do something, if you want to make yourself much more easier, use the functional features. They could be very convenient solution of your problem. So benefit of not using conditional, it's more readable code, easily maintainable code, more extendable code, and more testable code. Of course, sometimes it's not so straightforward programming when you don't use conditional. Conditional is like, it's deep in our brain. We think like, what if this happened, and else what if that happened? Yeah, I know it's hard to switch the logic, but try it sometimes, especially when some, let's say, if else getting out of your hand. Try to think about it if it's not possible to replace it by polymorphism. And that's about all. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?
So what's your opinion on switches?
Let me get back to you.
I just need one equipment.
We will meet in Windows less 1 then.
Or